Street fighting was a common pastime in the Pennsylvania oil towns of the 1860s and 70s. Most fighters were amateurs, but some gave up their jobs on the rigs and made it a full-time profession. One well-known fighting man of that time was George Coyle, a giant from Canada. He came to the oil regions in 1872 and found employment at Antwerp in Clarion County, brawn being in good demand at tool dressers' wages. He was unsophisticated and peaceable, but his splendid physique attracted attention, and he was soon interviewed concerning his fighting ability. Coyle declared that he had never fought anybody, and being challenged by some of the Antwerp bullies, he declined to do battle. When attacked, he made off as fast as possible, untouched by the taunts of the idlers. But then, one evening, he was surrounded by a cordon of toughs and literally compelled to do battle with the biggest man among them. There was no escape except to fight his way out, and Coyle accepted the challenge. He was more awkward than his opponent, but his great strength compensated for his lack of fistic training, and soon he knocked out his man. When the onlookers started to congratulate him, however, there was unexpected trouble. The first man forward received a blow that sent him sprawling, and the one who stood next to him was knocked on top of the first. Coyle was angry and was ready to whip the whole crowd. When 4 or 5 were down, the remainder fled, with the maddened Canadian in pursuit. When all had escaped his fury, the big fellow went back, picked up his dinner pail in one hand and his original antagonist in the other, and proceeded to his boarding house. Sadly, after that, George Coyle was no longer a man of peace. He took to drinking, and when he drank, he wanted to fight. He became a terror of the town. Later he became a terror of the oil region. He was a good workman when sober, and was always on the frontier of the newest oil town called into being by the onward march of oil developments, but every year he worked less and drank and fought more. In every town of the great Bradford field he cleaned up the fighting men singly and then contested with squads of them. Occasionally he was compelled to flee from half a dozen men armed with clubs, and wherever he was there were frequent disturbances of the nightly slumbers of the population, either by Coyle pursuing 2 or 3 through the streets, or by a half-dozen or a dozen pursuing Coyle. In the Richburg field he was a drunken brawler. At Cherry Grove he had sunk to a quarreler. In Gusher City in 1883, Coyle went one night to the shanty of a man in charge of an oil lease and asked for admittance. The request was refused. Coyle began to kick the door. The frightened man inside fired his revolver at the door-sill in the hope, as he testified, of driving the intruder away. The bullet struck Coyle in the foot, and his condition, resulting from dissipation and disease, was such that he died from the effects of the wound within a week.